So welcome to Grandad's Reviews. This is going to be my quick and unscientific look at firmware version 4 for the X-T3. I only just updated yesterday. Done a couple of very quick tests to see if there's any noticeable difference and is it worth updating. Spoiler alert, yes, it is worth updating. Just use my normal quick landing test at the top of my stairs just to see what differences there are. Now, some of the updates are going to be more relevant to different users. So if you're a JPEG shooter, straight out of camera type person, and the Fuji does create some fantastic JPEGs straight out of the camera, and I do use them on occasions, then you're going to be disappointed that you've not got any more film simulations or detail control or anything like that from the X-T4. But if you're a RAW shooter, which is primarily what I shoot 99% of the time, then those sort of things aren't going to really matter to you, and you're more interested in the other updates to the camera itself. So if you're running an earlier firmware on your X-T3 and you're thinking of updating, and will you actually gain anything from it, then yes, you will. Let's first look at the other things other than the autofocus updates. So on the website, other improvements, size of the single AF point can be adjusted during video recording. And as you can see here, yes, you can. You can actually adjust the size of the focus box while videoing. Now, I personally don't know whether that's going to be a big deal to most people, but I think it will be advantageous in some circumstances, especially if you can close that box down so it just covers a specific area and it doesn't have a chance of noticing anything else in the background and making it hunt. So hopefully that'll be a good, and I will test that in a future video just to see if it does make a difference. Photo ratings can be read by third-party software, so if you're somebody who rates your images on the back of the camera, they will be noticed in Lightroom and Capture One, so it might make it a bit easier, especially if you want to rate them out in the field. Now, this was an annoyance for me, and gladly they fixed it. When you put AE lock on, you couldn't move the focus point, it was stuck wherever it was. Now you can. So as you can see here, I've got the AE lock on and I can move the focus point around, and for me, yeah, that's stopped a big frustration. They've put on here that they've changed the default setting for the AFS priority setting to focus from release from the box. That's something you'll probably change anyway, so it's not a big deal. Now, one thing that I'm really glad they've added, and that is the new firmware adds the focus limiter function, which gives a predefined specific focus range. Now, I've been wishing this had been in the Fuji cameras ever since I got my Sony A77 II, which I got to use with my Minolta lenses, and that's got the focus limiter in it. And it is so useful, especially for wildlife, where you can set a range so the lens isn't, and the camera isn't hunting backwards and forwards, going the way to infinity then back and that. So that's a big update, I think, for me personally anyway. And as you can see here, you've got 3 settings. You've got 2 presets and a custom setting that you can alter yourself to what you want. I think the implementation isn't quite as good as on the Sony. The Sony is very simple to set up. This one I'm going to have a play with, get it out in the field and try it. And I think I'll do a complete video just on setting this up and using it, because I think it's a little bit more involved than the Sony one. But I'll do that in a later video. They've also said that the AF now works down to -7 EV. There's a caveat with that. It only does that with the 50mm f1, so for most of us that won't make a huge difference. But then we get to the autofocus. Now, the autofocus, I always thought on the X-T3 was very good. Special single point, single shot, AF, yeah. And they've changed the speed, AF speed from 0.06 seconds to 0.02 of a second. In the tests I've just done quickly, you can't really notice a difference. It's a small amount. It probably does make a difference, but I haven't really noticed it. The only thing I found lacking in the X-T3 was the tracking, and they've updated the tracking, and I must agree that is the biggest update. The tracking is so much better now in the X-T3 than it ever was. It actually is going to be useful, and I'm going to go out and try it out in the real world, not just testing in my on my landing, and we'll see how it works in the real situations. The face and eye tracking has improved considerably, probably not, but a reasonable amount that it does make a difference. So what I'll do now is I'll show you the quick tests I've done, go over them as I'm showing you them, and we'll see what the results are. Let's get to the computer. First test, we've got single shot AFS to see if there's any speed difference, and to be honest I can't notice anything at all. When we get on to eye detect, as you can see, firmware 4 seems to hang on to the eye a lot better, gets the eye more often, and doesn't seem to lose track of the face and eye as much. This is just in AFS. So if you're doing a portrait shoot or a studio shoot and you wanted to keep the eye and face detect on, I think yes, there is an advantage in firmware 3 over firmware 3, should I say. Firmware 4 seems to hang on a bit better. It certainly catches the eye and stays on the eye even when turning sideways. A good result. And now and again it does seem to lose track. So I thought I'd just do firmware 4 with AFC and eye tracking, and as you can see it does track really well. Even picking the eye up quite quickly after losing it. Oh yep, doing a very good job in firmware 4. Now we go on to tracking. As you can see, there's a huge difference. The tracking is now, I would say, usable. In firmware 3.3 it really wasn't worth having a go with it, but in this one it does seem quite usable, not losing very often at all. I lost it there, but once I reallocated the box it's got me. And as I say, once I get out I'll give it a bit more testing, it'll be great. So yeah, firmware 4, very good. So after looking at those quick tests I did, and I say they're very unscientific, it's only on my landing, so it's just a quick first view. As you can see, single point, single shot, you don't really notice the difference. I haven't bothered showing the single point continuous autofocus because, to be honest, you didn't notice difference on that. I haven't shown you the zone focusing differences because, again, I didn't notice any difference. But when we got to the eye and face detection, both in single shot AFS and AFC, you can see there is a difference. but when you saw the tracking, that's where we see the biggest difference. And I think the update is worth it just for the tracking. As I say, I'll go out, do some real life filming with it, video and stills, and we'll see how it actually works out in the wild. So that's my very first quick look at firmware 4, and was it worth the wait? Has it made a big difference? I think the answer is yes in some areas. Some disappointments that we didn't get film sims and things like that, but for me personally, the four things possibly that have really, I think, worth it for me was being able to move the focus point in AE lock, being able to size the autofocus box in video, the focus limiter, and the better AF tracking. And for me, that was definitely worth the update. So if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. If you want to be notified, hit that notification bell. Till next time, see you later.